The captain prepared to perform CPR on the man, but everyone was stunned. Was this considered manslaughter? 2 days earlier, the man had accidentally trapped his arm under a car. While changing a tire, his bone was sticking out. The firefighters quickly lifted the car to save his arm. However, the man was still preoccupied with an upcoming golf tournament to help his arm recover quickly. He even went for a cryotherapy session. When the firefighters arrived, the man had already been frozen for 666 minutes. They hurriedly pried open the door and discovered his chest was surprisingly fragile. They pulled him out and performed CPR, but then his chest shattered. Fortunately, after an autopsy, it was determined the man was already dead before CPR was administered. Otherwise, the captain would have been in trouble. A girl was lying on the sofa, drinking Coca-Cola. The next second, a meteor fell from the sky and hit her. When the firefighters arrived, they found her still alive.
How am I even alive? I have a hole in me.
They discovered it was the weighted blanket she had bought online that saved her. This weighted blanket contained the blast radius, which have cauterized most of the blood vessels. That's also why she didn't feel particularly hurt. But the sofa was fused to the girl. The firefighters had to use a saw to cut the sofa open.
I'm sorry. Did you say sauce? Did he say sauce? Did you say sauce?
1,234 minutes later, the sofa was finally separated. The girl and the sofa were taken to the hospital together. It's said that besides her, only one other person in history has been hit by a meteor.
Which makes you pretty special.
Is the girl lucky or unlucky? The dude was choking on a pumpkin and was about to die. The firefighters could only use a saw to cut it, while making sure not to hurt the man's head. Buck carefully cut a hole, and soon the man's head was freed. Chim quickly inserted a straw into the man's mouth and suctioned out the pumpkin guts he had inhaled. After 666 minutes, the man finally recovered. Before the firefighters left, the man expressed his gratitude and said he was so stupid for almost killed by a pumpkin. Buck reassured him in his many years as a firefighter, he had seen plenty of foolish things. Then,
I think I dislocated my shoulder.
The woman was just taking a shower when she slipped and got stuck in the shower holder. When the firefighters saw this, they quickly decided to cut her free. They first gave the woman a painkiller and told her not to move. One firefighter took a cutting tool.
Hey, ride the blade right up against the wall, nice and slow.
The woman worried about what would happen if she got hurt. The paramedic had to hold her tightly and comfort her like a mother. But what the woman didn't know was that the paramedic's hand was only 3 centimeters away from the cutting tool. Still, he chose to comfort her first and signaled to his teammates to start the cutting process. The firefighters focused hard, not just for the woman, but also for his teammate. A few minutes later, the holder was successfully cut, and the woman was sent to the hospital. Everyone should be careful not to slip while showering. Have you ever slipped in the bathroom? This hot boy was doing flips, but accidentally collided with a football player. When the team stopped, the boy's upper body had flipped 180 degrees. Even the firefighters had never seen anything like this. Only Diaz, who was a military medic, knew that the boy had a dislocated pelvis. Since there are arteries in the pelvis, they couldn't move him around, so the firefighters had to rush him to the hospital. They secured the boy, loaded him onto a stretcher. His mother was really worried.
What's happening? Is he going to be paralyzed?
Choi quickly took off the boy's shoes and used a small stick to poke the soles of his feet. The boy reacted, which meant it wasn't too serious, but just as he was about to get in the ambulance, he suddenly fell unconscious, and his blood pressure dropped fast. The firefighters hurried, but they hit traffic. To prevent the boy from losing too much blood, Diaz decided to use a balloon to block the artery. Though the chance of success was low, it was better than letting the boy die. The ambulance shook a lot, but he found a steady moment and successfully inserted the tool.
BP's back, and so is our boy!
The boy woke up, and the firefighters finally sighed in relief. I sighed in relief too.
a bullet hit his shoulder and shattered, sending a fragment into his head. But instead of dying, the guy started laughing like a maniac. Lying on the hospital bed, he was still giggling away, fingers twitching without a care in the world. Just as the doctors were getting ready to wheel him off for an MRI, his heart rate suddenly shot up.
You okay? Tachycardia, heart rate 150 and rising.
Blood started gushing from his wound. But here's the kicker. The attending physician didn't rush over to help. Instead, he started laughing uncontrollably, for no apparent reason. the doctors suspected they had contracted an unknown infectious disease and immediately sent them to an isolation ward. The man's condition rapidly deteriorated. His pain level kept rising. Even with emergency treatment, it was all in vain. As he looked at the dying man, the doctor seemed to glimpse his own impending fate. At that moment, Dr. House secretly brought over an ice pick and a hammer, asking him to take a brain tissue sample for a biopsy. It was the only chance for salvation. However, the dean was against it, arguing that this was an unknown virus and it should be handed over to the CDC. The doctor picked up the hammer and struck down, but what he retrieved was a wad of cotton. It turned out the virus had rendered him unable to see. In less than 2 hours, his condition spread rapidly, and his pain level soared to an 8. He pleaded with House to perform a live biopsy, even though the procedure could cause catastrophic damage to his brain. But the patient was insistent, so the doctor had no choice but to agree. The doctor survived. But
raise your right arm.
a panda was hospitalized because it was sick. But how to perform surgery on a panda? Do you know? Apparently, our doctors didn't know, but thinking about a failed surgery and getting canceled by YouTube users made them push through. However, doing surgery on a giant panda isn't easy because of their size difference. Injecting the right amount of medicine was a problem. The panda's heart even stopped beating. To save the panda's heartbeat, the doctors had to do CPR. After shaving the panda, they gave it electric shocks. Luckily, the shocks worked, and the panda's heartbeat came back to normal. Then the doctors continued the surgery. After draining the fluid around its heart, the giant panda regained consciousness. Do you like pandas? The poor boy was encased in concrete, with only one hand, one foot, and his head sticking out. He cried, begging the doctors to save him. But outside, his friends were having a laugh, high-fiving each other for getting him into this mess in the first place. The doctor could only tap and chip away at the concrete bit by bit. The boy lamented that he had jumped in to prove his bravery to his crush. Upon learning that she was outside laughing at him, he realized they saw him as a fool. In a fit of agitation, his legs swelled up like a balloon. The doctors had to make a little cut to let some pressure off. After 666 minutes, the concrete was almost entirely removed, leaving just a patch on his stomach. However, once they finished, the boy suddenly fainted. The girl, filled with regret, came over and kissed him, surprisingly waking him up. Miss Blue opened the door.
Ouch! Jeez!
The captain was startled and quickly asked her to sit down. The team doctor checked her and asked how long the symptoms had lasted.
The avatar look since I woke up. And on top of that, I have to go to work today. On Christmas! I mean, what kind of loser has to work on Christmas?
The firefighters looked offended. Suddenly, the girl started convulsing. The firefighters hurriedly held her down and used an oxygen meter to check her levels, finding the girl's methemoglobin levels were 60%. Meanwhile, they found the reason in the bathroom. They quickly administered the medication to the girl, and eventually, Miss Blue returned to normal.